I've got a Garmin Zumo that I normally use on my motorcycle, but I've actually been using it here in my Jeep Wrangler also. I really like it. It has a profile option, so I can pick if I'm on a motorcycle or if I'm driving. But I like it because it's rugged. It's a good size. A lot of the other GPSs just have such massive screens on them, and I think this one's like a 5-inch or something like that. Anyway, I've been using it up here for the last couple of months while I've been waiting for the power cord to come in, and I've just been using this USB cord that's been plugged down here into my lighter outlet, but I don't really like how that is. I would rather, and plus I don't think you get traffic over that cord. The Garmin Zumo one actually mounts, it screws into the mount so you can snap the GPS in place and it gets power as soon as you plug it in, and then it just wires up to your positive and negative wire. So I'm going to attempt to install this. This thing was back ordered for like 2 months, and it finally showed up. Just like everything else in the US is right now, seems to be back ordered. But anyway, I'm gonna attempt to install this. So one of my goals is I want to run the wire back through through the dash. I don't see why I couldn't, except for I was just underneath down there, and I shined a flashlight up, and there's a lot going on behind this dash. So as far as fishing that wire may be a little difficult. So what I'm going to attempt to do is pull this out. I did that whenever I did this install, and then see what it takes to actually remove the screen. If I can remove that, I hope that there's enough of a channel that I can kind of see enough to work that wire through. And then up here, I've got this piece pulled out, the little factory, removable pad. Now, I've got a ram mount that's made for the Wrangler that goes here and screws into those factory holes that supports my GPS. So what I'm going to do is drill a little hole, here in the plastic, and run the wire up, and then I can get it up around that ram mount. I hate drilling holes in factory stuff, but the main reason I hate it is because I want to be able to go back to factory if I ever decide to trade this thing in. If I throw this thing back down with that hole, you're not going to even see that hole. So I can pull my wiring harness back out. So that's what I'm going to attempt to do. Let's get started. All right, I'm going to remove my thing there, and then this just comes out. Now, the reason this should be easy for me is because I have a little bit of a gap from this, but without that you'd have to use a trim removal tool. There we go. That is out. And then there are 2 plugs, it looks like. That one and this one. I've got a screw right there and a screw right there. Okay, now I'm hoping that I can just grab this. Yep, grab this and give it a firm pull. Sure hope I don't break anything in the process. Maybe it just needs to pull straight out. Yep, pull straight out. Okay, now I could hear that. It sounds like one of those orange tabs popped off. So now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 on all 4 corners. Okay, took those 4 screws out, and then there it comes. It just slides out. It's like a massive tablet. All right, I have access now to this, and then I'm pretty sure I saw that duct whenever I was underneath and I looked up. So I've just got to drill my hole, and it has to be big enough to fit this end. So that's a pretty significant sized hole. And then I ought to be able to shove the cables down around this duct and get it back. So if you've got the Wrangler I have has the factory tow hitch, so you've got auxiliary buttons. If you have that, then underneath the floor mat you're going to have a wiring harness that gives you access to those, as well as the always on and an ignition. I'm going to wire this thing up to the ignition because I don't really want to use up one of my auxiliary switches to use on the GPS. So when the vehicle's on run, the GPS will be powered, and when I shut the vehicle off, it'll shut off. Slight change of plans. This was just too big. I didn't want to drill any bigger of a hole than I already had. This thing might be an antenna. I don't really know, but I don't really want this thing tucked behind the dash. So instead, what I think I'm going to do, whenever that ram mount I put up here, it actually sits flush. So I'm going to get some double stick tape and just stick this thing up here and coil all the extra wire up here. So in that case, I just need to extend this a little bit to get down to my wiring harness. A tip is whenever you go to drill the hole, don't start from the top. I discovered this. Start from the bottom, and the reason is because there's little ribs in there, and so that way you know if you go from the top, you may end up drilling out one of those ribs and making the whole thing weaker. So go from the bottom, and my drill bit was so long, what I ended up doing was using my pocket knife, and I just stuck it up there and carved around in circles for a while until I had a little bit of a hole started. Then I could stick my drill bit up there to keep my drill gun from dancing around, and then drill from the bottom up. Once I had that up here, I just took my pocket knife and shaved the hole so that it was nice and flush here on the top. So I will double stick that, wrap the excess wire up here, and then have the rest coming out onto the ram mount. So now I just need to figure out how to fish this thing down. Another thing I wanted to point out is I kind of have a shortcut already. Whenever I did my other wiring, so here's my wiring harness. And whenever I did my other wiring, I actually ran, there's no ground here, which is kind of annoying. So there's only positive. So you're gonna have to find some metal to drill out to get a ground. Well, underneath this kick panel, there was a ground stud already. So I grounded everything, and so whenever I ran the wires back here, I ended up leaving these two that are already grounded. So luckily I only need to run my wire down here and connect it here. I don't have to pull these kick panels off. But I'm gonna be connecting to pink orange. The pink orange one is the one that's run on ignition. The red and white is the always on battery connection, and I don't want it there. The other two I'm using their auxiliary ones, but that's the one I'm gonna tap it onto, and then I'm just gonna tap it onto one of these existing grounds that I've run from before. Here's where I'm at. So I got this thing run. I'm using this X-Fasten tape. It's some kind of a fabric electrical tape. I love this stuff. A friend recently told me about it. It sticks really, really well. So anyway, I covered up the hole with that. I used some Gorilla double stick tape just to hold this thing down so it doesn't rattle. And then here I wrapped that whole wire. The wire that came on the Garmin, I just wrapped up completely, and I wire nutted it to just some little 18 gauge speaker wire that I ran down. And the reason I wire nutted it is because I didn't want to really deal with a soldering iron in here. I'll set it down and melt through something. So I just did that, and then I taped it up against that duct with that same X-Fasten stuff. And the reason I taped it is because I don't want it rattling in the wintertime or something like that when everything's really hard. So I'm gonna go ahead and complete this top piece before I deal with all the wiring stuff down here. And the reason is because I want to make sure this all works before I get everything cut and soldered in. I also found another really good shortcut. I tucked the wire back behind this, but the glove box actually really easily removes. You can open the glove box. This thing pulls down and then pops out. And then there's a little tab right there that you can push up on and slide the thing out. And then you open it all the way, and it unhinges from those bottom pieces. And I can just set it over there. It makes it way easier to get there and route stuff. So anyway, I just have it running down to the floor. I'll probably zip tie it or tape it to some things in there just to keep it nice and tight and keep it from rattling. But I'm gonna go ahead and get that ram mount put back in, and let's see how that looks. It is in and locked in tight, so that's what it looks like with the wiring in it. So I just have the wiring running up and then down into this. I coiled that up down here, taped it down like I showed, and then ran it down through the hole. So the last step is going to be finishing up the wiring, routing it down there, and then tightening that in. But I actually left everything like I had it. And so that snaps in. I have this little piece of foam. It's a piece of like weather stripping. or whatever, like high density foam, a real thin piece of it, and then I put some of that X fastener tape on the top and bottom just to kind of do that, you know, keep it from rubbing. But before, when I installed this, you know, it had a little bit of a wobble to it, but I wanted it to, if it seats on the dash, it won't wobble, but I didn't want it rubbing on the dash, so I put that piece of foam there. And I've been using this thing for a while now, and I haven't had any problems. I mean, I like how solid it is. It's a pretty good mount, and this rail actually is really nice because you can buy more of these little balls, and then you slide where you want them, and then you cinch them down, and then they're tight. And then that takes any kind of a ram mount that you can get, and most devices have some kind of an adapter to a ram mount. So I bought a second one, I put it there. I haven't ended up using it. I thought about using a handheld GPS, like a hiking GPS, just to have it be able to snap in real easy. I also thought about mounting a ball to my molly panel up here to be able to snap in a hiking GPS up there. I haven't done any of that so far. This is the only one I use regularly. And again, I now have a mount here in my Jeep and on my Versys, so I can pop this off, throw it on my motorcycle, and change the profile on the GPS, and it's all set up for dirt bike or motorcycle riding. There is the finished product. I put the dash all back together. Wire runs there, runs back behind here. I pulled it kind of tight and wrapped it up in tape, followed some of that stuff. And then down here, same thing. I just tied it there, put a zip tie here with the extra slack, and then there's all my wire nuts. I like to put a wire nut on the end and then put a zip tie right behind it so that it just kind of helps hold those wires together. And now for the test, I'm going to put it on accessory. There it came, fired right up. Sweet, it's working. And go put this back down to off, and then it should shut into, yep. Hopefully that helps somebody. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and feel free to leave me any comments if you got any questions. Thanks.